Welcome everyone. So last week we've been talking about how people should get along with their neighbors and what happens if neighbors have disputes and how they're settled. And in the course of the conversation last week, the topic came up of a lost and found situation where somebody lost an article, and what is the obligation of the person who finds it to return that? And really that question came up right about at the end of last week's class. So I decided this week to do a little digression, go off on a little bit of a tangent, and leave Bava Basra for a little while, and go into Bava Metzia. And in the Gemara, Bava Metzia, the topic of lost articles is covered. So your handout starts Daf Chaf Aleph Amud Beis, 21 Amud Aleph 21a of Bava Metzia, and you have a flag showing where the English starts, English translation. You have a flag showing where the Hebrew starts. So the Mishnah says, Eila Metzia Shalo, ve'elu chayiv lahachritz. So if a person finds something, and let's say he finds it in the street, he finds, I don't know, a wallet with money inside, what is he obligated to do? And so the Mishnah is going to tell us what types of found articles you are allowed to keep, and which ones you need to basically advertise that you found something, and then it'll explain to us how that advertising was done. But the Mishnah says, Eila Metzia Shalo, the following are the types of things that if you find them, you can keep them, right? So Matzah Peiros Mefuzarin, if he found scattered fruit on the ground, basically. So the point was that the owner did not leave it in that state deliberately. It just looks like it's scattered or spread around. So that means that he lost it. And the assumption is that he has abandoned any hope of finding it again, or coming back, or someone returning to him, because he lost it, it's scattered, and he basically gave up hope. And the Hebrew term is called yi'ush, or he's miyaesh. He basically has given up hope that he's going to find it, and therefore, if he gives up hope of finding it, that produce now is what? It's ownerless, right? Nobody owns it. So if no one owns it and I find it, I have the right, just like anyone else, to take it. So if somebody found produce scattered on the ground, or he found coins. Let's say he finds coins scattered on the ground. So, or krichos b'rshus harabim, or bundles of grain in a public area. Again, the person who lost this does not expect to get it back. So he basically has given up hope that he's going to ever find it again. And so if you find it, it's perfectly okay for you to take it. The igule tvela, and they used to dry out their figs, and then they would press them together in a cake. So if you've seen dried figs in the Greek market or whatever, they press them together in a cake. And again, there's no way to recognize that this belongs to him, or kikaro shel nachtom, or commercial bread made by a commercial baker. And again, it's uniform in shape, it's uniform in weight, so there's no way that you can distinguish that loaf of bread belongs to me, or so that I can't go and claim it. So the person realizes that loaf of bread is lost to him. He's never going to get it back, and so he gives up hope. Macharozo shadagim, or fish, that somebody caught the fish and he put them on a string. So those fish that are on the string, here's a handout. Those fish that are on the string, also there's no way to recognize who owns those fish, and that's something like that. Or v'chatiro shel basar, or chunks of meat. So he finds chunks of meat on the ground. So the same thing, if it's spread out and it looks like some sort of random haphazard situation there, he can keep it. Or v'gizei tzemer, or wool that's recently been shorn, halakuchin medinasan, from their locale. In other words, if it seems like this wool comes from the local area, not something that came from a distance. So all the farmers are shearing their sheep, and this package of wool, or these wool fleeces somehow got lost. nobody can say that, well, that's the wool that came from a far distance and I can identify it in that way. It looks like all the other wool that all the other farmers have. Same thing. Vanitze pishtan, and also the same way if you have stalks of flax, right, Ezra? That's the same thing, which is also, it's local produce, and since it looks like everybody else's, so he has no way to identify it, and he basically realized he's not going to get it back. Ulushono shel argaman, or even wool that has been combed and has been dyed, and it's dyed at this purple color, but still it was a common item, and so it's not, there's no way to recognize it, that it belongs to some particular person. Hare elu shelo. So all these items, these articles, and we can extend it to our own day, types of things that would not be easy to distinguish who owns them. So those things belong to the person who finds it. He's permitted to keep it, right? Divrei Rabbi Meir. So says Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Huda comes along and he says, Kol sheyesh bo shinui chayav lahachris. Something that has a change in it, something different about it. That kind of thing, he needs to advertise that he's found it. Ketzad. What's an example of that? Matzah igul u'v'socho cheres. So suppose he finds this cake of dried figs, and in the center of the cake there is a pottery shard. So now, why would somebody put that pottery shard in the middle of this cake of figs? What do you think, Eitan?
To say, this is mine, and that's what I'll tell you.
That's his way of identifying it, right? So he does it just like we write our name in our book.
It can be a trademark.
Pardon?
A trademark.
A trademark, exactly right. So he'll if somebody were to find it, he can easily identify and say that in the middle of that cake of figs, there's a potsherd, and maybe he can identify the potsherd itself. So it's a trademark. It's some kind of a sign that it belongs to him, and therefore you're not permitted to take that for yourself, right? You've got to now make it known publicly that you have found this thing and give the person who lost it a chance to come and claim it. Why? Because he didn't give up on it. Because he felt that someone is going to find it and look for him, or at least let it be known that it was found. So he still feels like he's the owner. So that means if someone else is the owner, you can't take it for yourself, right? Or another example is kikor, it was socho ma'os. So it's a loaf of bread, and inside the loaf of bread, there are coins baked into the bread. Same thing. So, we're not talking about what is it, they make the shissel kugel or whatever, right? Right, the schlissel, right, they make the key inside. But this is a case where somebody baked bread, and he put coins inside there, so that, with the intention that if it were to get lost, he misplaced it somehow, and the person finds it, they're going to recognize that this must belong to somebody who was particular about it and intends to get it back. Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar Omer, so a third opinion, now Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar says, Kol klei anpuria ein chayav lahakris. So anpuria was, I guess it was a well-known factory that made pottery items, bowls, dishes, whatever, and they were uniform. So if somebody were to find this type of thing, that's like if you find
Mikasa.
Pardon?
A mikasa.
Mikasa, that's right. If you find a mikasa dish somewhere, well, that same mikasa pattern could have been duplicated hundreds of times, maybe more. And how can someone come along and say, if you found a mikasa plate, it's my plate? Because it could be anybody's plate. So he's willing to basically give up hope that he's ever going to find it again. And therefore, according to Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar, this uniform type of vessel is going to be the property of the finder. The finder can keep it. Okay. So that's the Mishnah. Let's see, what does the Gemara have to say? The Gemara is going to expand upon the Mishnah. So the Gemara says, Matzah Peros Mufuzarin. So the Mishnah made a statement. The statement was that he found these fruits that were scattered, spread out, right? So what does that mean? How do you define that? There was how much fruit in how much space means that it's scattered, right? So the comma, what's the number? How does it work? Amar Yitzchak, Kav Barva Amos. So he has to have a kav of fruit. Kav is a measure of volume, and a kav is about 1/6 of a saw, another measurement. And if you've ever gone to the mikveh, the minimum size of a mikveh is 40 saw. So this kav is not a very big amount, but if you found that amount in a space of 4 amos, so 4 amos is between 6 and 8 feet. So let's say 6 feet by 6 feet, and you find, let's say, a bushel of fruit there, and it's spread out. So that's considered that is considered fruit that is spread out or scattered, and therefore you could keep it. So hechidami. So what is the case? Iderech tefila. If it looks like they fell there, so it's not. He didn't pile them up in a certain way, organize them in a row, whatever it is. It looks like they just fell, right? So let's say he had his donkey loaded with fruit, and as the donkey was walking along, some of the fruit dropped off onto the ground, and in this area of 6 by 6 feet, he finds, let's say it's a bushel, let's say that's the quantity, of fruit scattered around there, and it doesn't look like it was placed there on purpose. In that case, he could keep it. So the Gemara says, if it looks like it just fell, it looks like it's random, looks like it was not placed there intentionally, afilu tuvanami, even a larger quantity than just this amount of this kav. V'yiderech hinuach, and if it looks like it was placed there, so maybe they're piled up in a certain way, or maybe they're organized in rows, or whatever it is, afilu batzim mehachinamilo, even if it's a smaller quantity, but it looks like the person placed it there deliberately, meaning he's expected to come back for it. He put it there in a certain way, he's expecting to come back. So even a lesser quantity, you should not be able to take that. Amar Rav Ukva bar Chama. So Rav Ukva bar Chama says, he says, B'mashkanashta devei dori. If you find it, you're permitted to take it, to keep it, right? So batzamihachi, but if it's a smaller amount, in that case, tarach v'hadar asi b'shakalhu, and he would probably come and pick it up. V'lo mafkerlu, and he does not make it hefker. He doesn't say that anybody that comes along can take it, because I'll come back and I'll pick it up. So they're giving you the quantity. Boy Rabbi Yirmiyah, so Rabbi Yirmiyah says, okay, so you're going to say a kav so 6 by 6 is 36 square feet, right? So if I lose a bushel in 36 square feet, so that is the quantity you're giving me. How about chatzi kav b'shtei amos mahu? How about half a kav instead of 4 by 4, 2 by 2? So 2 by 2 is 4 square feet. Half a bushel of 4 square feet, as opposed to a full bushel in 2 by 2. 2 amos is 3 feet, right? So it's 9 square feet. So it's 9 square feet. 1 bushel of 9 square feet as half a bushel, sorry, as opposed to a full bushel in 36 square feet. So what is the ruling in that case? He says kav ba'arba amos. So the fact that he loses this bushel in a 4 by 4 area, time of my, what is the reason? Bishum de nafish terchai, because it's a lot of work to sweep up this area 36 square feet. Chatzi kav b'shtei amos, but half of a bushel in 2 by 2, which is a much smaller area, kivin lo nafish terchaihu, it's not such a lot of work for him. Lo mafkerlu, so he's not going to abandon it. He's going to say it's not a big job for me to come there and sweep this up. O dilma, or maybe you're going to say mishum de lo chashivi, or you might say, you know what, for half a bushel, he's already halfway home, and it's getting dark, and he's not going to turn around and go back to pick up that small quantity of wheat. V'chatzi kav b'shtei amos, kivin de lo chashivi mafkerlu, even though it's maybe not so difficult, not such a lot of work for him to pick it up, but it's still a small amount of wheat. He's already harvested his crop. He's threshed the wheat and everything else. He's starting to make it to grind it into flour. He's not going to go all the way back and pick up this small amount, even though it's not hard to do because it's in a small area. He's not going to do it. So now the Mishnah says, like Gemara asks, kabayim b'shmona amos mahu. So suppose he has 2 bushels in 8 by 8, as opposed to 4 by 4. what's the din in that case? So kav arba amos tamamai. Why? So if it's one bushel, let's say, in this 4 amos square, what is the reason that the person will abandon hope of bringing it back? Because mishum de nafesh shechai, because it's a lot of work. V'kol shekain kabayim mishmon amos. So certainly, if it's a larger area, so same way, it's a lot of work for him to go ahead and sweep that up. Kivan de nafisha terchayu today, since it's more work for him to go and pick it up, to sweep up a larger area, mafkalahu, he would abandon it. That's maybe, or Dilma, or maybe mishum delo chashivi. The reason that he leaves behind the 1 bushel is because 1 bushel is not a big deal to him, and he's not going to bother with it. But v'kabayim mishmona amos. But if what he lost was 2 bushels in this 8 by 8 area, kevin chashivi. Now 2 bushels, that already means something to him. In that case, lo mafkalu, and he would not abandon. He would not give up hope of getting it back because he wants that. That's a large amount of wheat for him. So how about this? Kav shum shemim, if he lost a kav of sesame seeds. So sesame seeds are valuable, right? They cost more than wheat grain, but they're also very small, right? So if you lost a kav of sesame, ba'arba amos mahu, what is the din if you lost this quantity, this bushel, let's say, of sesame seeds in a 4x4 area? So kav ba'arba amos taima me'ai. Why, in terms of the wheat, why do we say that it's abandoned? Because mishum delo chashivi, because it's not valuable to him, just 1 bushel of wheat kernels. B'shum shemin kivin chashivi, but sesame, right? If you've ever bought sesame seeds in a store, you know they're pretty expensive. So since sesame seeds are valuable, lo mafker lahu, he won't make it hefker. He won't abandon ownership of it because it's worth something to him. O dilma, or maybe mishum de nafesh techayu. If you ever try to pick up sesame seeds on the floor, it's not so easy. So therefore, since it's a lot of work for him to go and pick all that up, but I guess they didn't have vacuum cleaners, right? In those days.
It will be dirty.
Pardon?
It will be dirty.
It'll be
also.
dirty too. So that's another issue. V'kol shekain shum shemin, and certainly sesame seeds, it's a big effort to pick them up. Kivin the nafesh techayu tevei mafkalahu. So then maybe because it's a lot of work for him to pick it up, he would just basically abandon the sesame seeds. So how about this one? Kav tamre ba'arba amos. So now we know dates are much bigger, right, than sesame seeds or grains of wheat. Or kav rimoni ba'arba amos mahu. Or this bushel of pomegranates in the same space as well. So what is the din in that case? We're not recording?
Low battery.
Low battery. Okay, just let it keep going. So what's the din in that case? Kav ba'arba amos tamamai. So in terms of the this amount that's lost in the 4 amos, what's the reason? Mishum b'lo chashivi, because it's not important. So if you're going to say the reason that he was willing to abandon the wheat is because of the quantity that left behind, and the quantity is not important to him, so in that case, kav tamri ba'arba amos. So if it's a bushel of dates, or kav rimoni ba'arba amos nami, or that also it's not so valuable. So kivin delo chashivi mafker lahu. So he would say the same thing, that it's not so valuable, just 1 bushel of it, and he would leave it behind. O dilma, maybe mishum de nefisha terchayu, because it's not that hard, to pick up the dates or the pomegranates compared to picking up the wheat. V'kav tamri ba'arba amos, v'kav rimoni ba'arba amos, kivin to lo nefesh terchayu. Since it's not all that difficult for him to go and pick up a bushel of pomegranates, for example, you can do it pretty quickly. Lo mafker lahu. So in that case, he would not abandon hope of finding it. So the Gemara says, what is the din? What is the ruling in that case? And the answer that they give is teku. And teku's initials, it's a contraction for tishbi yataris kushios uboyos, that when Eliyahu Hanavi comes, he'll settle all these questions, right? So we don't really know. We don't really know what is the din in this case, and therefore the question remains unresolved. So therefore, the person who finds it has to leave it there. Because
A small note, why do we say Tishbi and not Moshe Rabbeinu? That he wrote all the dinim.
well, for one thing, Eliyahu Hanavi is one of the people who never died.
No, he's more current. He comes to every bris and everything, so he knows what's going on, internet and all this.
He knows internet. That could be. Could be. It's very
So
possible.
That's what I heard.
Very possible, and also we have a tradition that in Mashiach time, that Eliyahu Hanavi is going to come with him, whatever. So whatever it is, the bottom line is they're saying that we don't really know how to resolve this question, and therefore, the best advice to the person who finds it is to leave it in place, because we don't know what's the correct decision to make. So now we're getting into the question of yush. What does yush mean? So yush shalom midas. So if somebody gives up hope of finding something, but it's not the kind of thing that he's consciously making that decision. He let's say he doesn't even realize. You're walking along and you have a hole in your pocket, and that silver dollar you've been carrying around fell through the hole, and you don't know that you've even lost it, but you lost it, and if you realize you lost it, you would have given up hope of ever finding it again. So in a case like that, where the person is not aware that he's even lost it, so if he knew he lost it, he would have basically said, well, I dropped a quarter on the ground, no way I'm going to get that quarter back, and somebody finds it, they're not going to give it to me, so forget about it. But the yush that he had, that giving up of hope, was not conscious, right? In these previous cases, we said that the person knew he lost the produce, and he just, for whatever reason, was not intending to go back and pick it up, whether it's a lot of work for him or it's not valuable enough to him, but he's consciously abandoning his ownership of it. But suppose he never made a conscious decision to abandon ownership. He doesn't know that he dropped a quarter, right? He was on the way to the laundry machine, and he had a handful of quarters there, and he didn't realize they dropped one or two of them on the floor. So he comes back into the house. He doesn't realize he's lost it. Some next person comes along and says, "Oh, great! I can make my wash with these quarters that I found on the floor." So Abaya says, what is that situation? Because the person who dropped the quarters didn't even realize that he dropped them. So how could he have given up hope of ever finding them again? And therefore the person who picked it up, is he really allowed to do that, right? Because there's no conscious decision on the part of the person who lost it. So the Gemara says, "B'davar she'yesbo simon," if the item that was lost is something that has a mark, an identifying mark on it, in that case, kuli amalo pligi. Everybody agrees in that case, v'lo hava yush, that he didn't give up hope of finding it. We're on 21b now. So if you flip over. So if it's a situation where the item that he lost, so let's say, let's say it wasn't a quarter that he dropped, maybe it was 1943 copper penny, right, which is worth who knows how much money. So he knows what that is, and anybody finding that, he can easily say, if somebody says I found money, he can easily say, what you found was a 43 copper penny, which I lost. So in that case, he's not giving up hope, because there's a sign, there is an identifying mark on it. Or suppose he lost something which is clearly identified, and even though he may not realize that he lost it up until this point, but still in all, he would not give up hope of finding it. Even though eventually, when he does hear that he lost it, he would give up hope, but not yet, because he doesn't know yet. Lo hava yesh, because so therefore, if the person who finds it takes it for himself, be surahu to asali day. At that moment that he found it, the person who lost it had not given up hope of ever finding it again. So therefore, you picked it up. It's not yours to pick up. It still belongs to that owner. So that's the question. Even though we know that eventually he's going to realize he lost the money or whatever it was that he lost, and he's going to give up hope, but he hasn't done that yet, right? Because if he learns that he lost it, and don't forget this thing has a mark on it, he's not going to give up hope. So Meimar Amar, he will say, Simona isli begave, I have a mark on it. There's a sign that I've made on this article, so I know that if somebody finds it, I'm going to be able to claim it to get it back, right? So v'shakilale, and I'll take it back from that person who found it. So bezuto shel yam, we're talking about a case where maybe he was sitting on the beach and he got up from his blanket and he went into the ocean, and the tide rose, there was a wave, and it picked up his whatever item it was. Maybe he had a can of Dr. Pepper, and the ocean swept that can out to sea. And he's still on the beach, he's still swimming. He doesn't realize that his soda has been taken by the wave, and therefore he hasn't given up hope yet. Or bishlulu so shel nahar, or a river flood came similar way, so the water washed it away. Afagav the isbe simon, even though there is a sign on it, Rahmana Sharia, because in that case, it's so clear, so obvious to the person who lost it that it's never coming back. It was taken, Hurricane Sandy washed it away, and it's not coming back. Even though maybe there's a mark on it, somebody finds it, the Torah says you could keep it, because Kidiba'ina Lamemer Lakaman, as we're going to see later on in the discussion, why that is true. Keep ligi. So in what case do they disagree, right? We said that in a case where there is a sign on it, they don't disagree. It says, B'davar she'ein bo simon. So if you have a certain article that has no identifying mark on it, Abaya Amar, lo havayish. Abaya says, even though eventually he's going to find out he lost it, and he's going to realize he's not getting it back, but up until now, he doesn't know he lost it. So even though there's no mark on it, he still thinks he's got it, and therefore he's not giving up hope of ever finding it, of getting it back. The whole lo yada nafal mina, he doesn't know it fell. He's not aware that he lost it even. Rava Amar Havayish. Rava disagrees with Abaye, and Rava says, "Hey, come on. That is, even though he's not conscious that he's given up hope, he's going to give up hope. Because once he realizes that he lost this article, which has no identifying mark on it, then in that case, miyayish, he's going to give up hope. He's going to realize he's not getting it back, and therefore, we can assume that even now that he doesn't know that he's in the same situation. Meimar Amar, so Meimar says, Simona Leslie Begave, so the person who lost it says, there was no mark on it, there's no way to identify it, Mahashtahu de miyayish, and therefore, it's considered as if retroactively he gave up hope of ever finding it, because when he does realize that he's lost it, and he knows that there's no simon, there's no mark on it, he's going to basically give up hope, and so we say that even retroactively to the point that he dropped it, he has given up hope he's ever going to get it back. Tashma, so the Gemara says, come and hear, a different case, Peiros Mifuzarin. So we're talking about the case of the produce that's scattered on the ground, right, that we learned in our Mishnah. So he may not realize that they fell. So the Gemara says, does he not realize he lost the fruit? So it's not like he had a pocket full of change and a few quarters fell out, or he was holding a handful, he dropped them. But here he had these fruits. He's not going to realize that he lost the fruit, right? Homer of Ukva Bar Chama. So Rav Ukva Bar Chama says that Haka b'mashkanta the bizri askinan. So what are we talking about? We're talking about kernels of wheat, basically, at the time that they are gathering the kernels of wheat. So in that case, David Midasi, because it's like once he's lost it, he knows that it's lost. He knows that he's going to lose a certain percentage, and he basically accepts that it's sort of as a cost of doing business. Toshma. So how about this case? Mo samufusaros. Suppose it was money, it was coins that were scattered on the ground. Hare elu shalo. So we're saying that the person who finds it is allowed to keep it. Amai. Why do we say that he's allowed to keep it? Halo yoda denafomine. So because the person who lost it doesn't realize that they're even lost, and therefore what is the situation? Does he give up hope? Ezra, what do you think?
I think he would give up hope because doesn't money like keep going round and round because he would use it to pay for something and then the guy that gets it will use it to pay for something else.
Because money circulates.
Yeah.
So he would give up hope of ever finding it.
Yeah.
Finding it again. Okay. So here it's a case where he doesn't know that he lost it, and therefore you can't assume that he gave up hope because he doesn't even know he lost it, right? Hasam Nami, there too, could Rabbi Yitzchak. It's like the statement of Rabbi Yitzchak to Amar. He said, Adam asli lamashmesh bekiso b'kol shah v'shah. A person is accustomed to tapping on his pocket all the time. A person, people are always counting their money. If you have money in your pocket, so you tend to take a look and see how much is there.
No, especially in Italy, pickpockets and everything. So you make sure that you have the wallet on you.
Exactly right. So people are always aware of their money. So if one time he taps on his pocket, he's walking down the street in Venice, and he taps his pocket, there's nothing there. So at that point, he knows that he's lost it. And what happens? Does he expect to get it back from when he crosses the Rialto Bridge? No way. He knows that that's not happening. He's not getting it back, and he's aware of it because it's his money, and he's always tapping on his pocket to make sure that the money is there. So, Hachanami here too. Adam Asi Lamashin Shbekiso V'Kol Shavashah, and here too, this case where the coins are found scattered on the ground, he's aware that he lost it. So you can assume that the person knows that he lost it, and if he knows he lost it, he's not expecting to get it back. He's basically given up hope, and he's made those coins now ownerless. And therefore, if there's no owner, you, like anyone else, have the right to go ahead and take it. Toshma, another case. Igule devela v'kikaras hoshanachtom hare elu shalom. So this cake of dried figs, or commercial bread, right, baked by a baker, not by a homemaker, made by in a baker in a factory. So these cases, he can keep it. Why? Amai, the Gemara says, why is he allowed to keep this? If somebody finds a loaf of Arnold bread on the ground, why is he allowed to keep that bread? And the owner may not realize that he's lost it, even though there's nothing differentiating his loaf of bread from someone else's loaf of bread, or his cake of figs from someone else's cake of figs. Still in all, he doesn't realize he lost it. And if he doesn't realize he lost it, what does that mean in terms of the ownership of that article?
He doesn't give it
He still believes he still owns it, because he has not abandoned his ownership rights, right? So he doesn't realize he lost it. So Hasamnami, there too, Agadi Akiri Meda Yadabu. So, no, he says, because these things are heavy. A cake of figs, if he's walking along, let's say he's got a pack on his back and he's carrying his figs or whatever, and he drops one, he's going to realize that his load is lighter. What do you think?
This whole thing about the loser's thought process. When a finder finds something, let's say a thing of bread, he's not going to know if the loser is 10 miles down or 100 feet down on the next curve. He's not going to know whether he knows or not. I'm going to see this fresh bread. I'm going to go, oh, great, fresh bread.
Right. So that is.
How am I supposed to know?
So that's what the Gemara is trying to get at. They're trying to say that if you find a loaf of bread that has no mark on it, indicates that it belongs to your bubby, right? Right. You don't know that it's her bread or anybody else's bread. You find that loaf of bread. Can you assume that the owner of that bread says, hey, I dropped a loaf of bread, and what am I going to do? I lost it, right? And if he says that, even though he may not use those words, and he may not say it out loud, but he basically says that bread is gone. So if that bread is gone to him, what does that mean? Who owns that bread now?
Whoever wants to take it.
Nobody. The finder, that's right.
Everybody.
Nobody owns it, because the person who did own it is basically saying it is now ownerless, and therefore anyone that picks it up has the absolute right to take it. So he's saying that in the case of bread or figs, since they're heavy, so the person who's carrying those if he dropped one, and after a while he checks his pack or whatever, he realizes that it's gone, and he's not gonna, and he knows that there's no mark on it. So basically, you can assume that he has given up hope of finding it. If he gave up hope. Next case, Toshma Lushona Sha'argamon. How about these strips of wool that's dyed purple? So how about those? We're saying that the person can keep that. Hare Elu Shalo. So that he could keep. So am I, and why in that case, right? Because this little strips of wool are a lot lighter than a cake of figs, right? So you can't use the same argument. You can't say that because he doesn't realize, because they're so heavy that he realized he lost them. In that case, he would not realize that he lost a couple of strips of wool. Let's say he's got a big sack full of these woolen strips, and one or two fell out of the bag. He wouldn't realize it because the weight of that wool is so small, he wouldn't feel that he lost it, and therefore would he have given up hope? No, because he doesn't even know that he lost it yet. So what happens in that case, right? So he says, Hasam Nami, Agav the Yakri, Mede Gadabahu. So, wait, I skipped the line. So there, because Hasam Nami, Agav the Chashivi, so, but the strips of purple dyed wool are valuable. And since they're valuable, right, guys? That wool is valuable, so there, in that case, Mashmushe, Mamash Meshbahu, he's always checking, always making sure. If he had 150 strips of wool, he's going to pretty often take a look at that bag and count them up and make sure he still has them all, because it's valuable. Ukri Rabbi Yitzchak. And that is like the opinion of Rabbi Yitzchak, who says that valuable items, the person is going to check on it, and therefore he's going to realize that he lost it. And you can assume if that you found it on the road, you can assume that the person knows he lost it, and he has abandoned any ownership rights in that article.
Then it seems like anything that had no sign,
Right.
how would anyone claim it?
Well, pretty much that's the case. Well, you mean the loser, the person who lost it.
Something is lost, but dropped
Right.
on the road, whatever it is. It might have a lot of value, it might have a little value, but it's in a common area. Lots of people go by there. How would you have any expectation if it had no mark on it? How would you have any expectation of finding it ever?
Well,
Of
so that's,
having someone return it. I mean, why would that even be in your mind? I lost it.
well, the point is, the discussion is, Abaye and Rav are having a difference of opinion. Abaye says
Based
that,
on what?
that the person, we assume he gave up hope of finding it. Even though he's not aware he lost it, if he did know, he would have given up hope. And Rava says, no, until he knows that he's lost it, he hasn't given up hope, right? And therefore, we're gonna have to continue this discussion next week, and we're gonna continue, I guess we'll continue with the subject of lost and found next time, and we'll try to get a little deeper into it, and we'll actually go and look at the halachas according to the Rambam and see really what the rules are.